Talk is provided for general information only and should not be treated as a substitute for professional advice. Please consult your trusted financial advisor, real estate professional, or attorney before making any real estate or financial decisions. Please remember, when following advice, your results may vary, and all information covered here is not intended to cover all aspects of the subject material, but rather a sample of issues the hosts and guests consider important.
Thank you and welcome to Real Estate Talk. We're here to bring you unbiased information from top experts to help you make better decisions. We live video stream on Facebook.com/Victoria RIVA and on YouTube every Wednesday from the WOR iHeart Studios. This show also airs on Sunday mornings at 5 a.m. on AM 710 WOR. I'm Victoria Rivadeneira, and I've been in the business for over 25 years. I'm a licensed real estate broker. I'm a certified real estate instructor. I'm also a business development officer for Stewart Title. I actually wear a lot of hats, but today I am your host on Real Estate Talk. We also podcast, which you can also find on our website, which is at reradiotalk.com. I'm here with my co-host today, who just joined our team, and I want to welcome you, John. John Noto, our co-host.
Thank you.
How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing really well. We're a little late today. They moved us out of our normal studio. Kind of shook our world a little bit, but we're okay, right? We roll.
A little bit, but we're looking forward to a great show with a really, really interesting topic.
We have a very interesting topic today, and we have a great guest, and we have Lior Aldad in the studio with us, who is our legal advisor. I know he loves this topic as well.
Yes.
What are we talking about?
Well, today we're going to take a deep dive into the dynamic world of the international investors in the U.S. real estate market. We're going to take a look at the legal aspects of investing in the U.S., what the qualifications need to be, financial intricacies and aspects of the transaction, and also the impacts on the markets. We're fortunate enough to have Raj Paul, who has an extensive background and experience in dealing with the international investor, and also we have a tremendous legal mind that's going to help us through the legal aspects with Lior Aldad.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And Lior Aldad, by the way, brought me chocolates this morning.
Can't beat that.
We cannot beat that. He just went right to the top of my list. Totally. So for anyone who wants to come on the show, now you know the secret. That is Victoria's secret. Chocolate.
You just raised the bar.
Definitely chocolate. Thank you, Leo. I very much appreciate that. And I will break it open, so I will share with everyone here in the studio. So thank you again. So yes, we have Raj Paul in the studio with us. Raj is a very, very dear friend of mine. Raj and I, and typically I have the co-host introduce Raj, but I'm stealing this one from you today because Raj and I know each other for, I want to say 26 years, but I'm afraid to say that because that's a long time.
It is. It really is, actually.
Yeah, 26 years. I mean, you just have a tremendous amount of experience. I could read this bio, but I'm just really going to go on what I know about you.
Thank you.
First and foremost, I mean, I remember, meeting you 26 years ago and being so impressed with you back then. And after all these years, you just keep raising the bar. It's just amazing to me. But Raj is, you are a number one, you're in the top 1% of loan originators for a very well-known bank. That's very impressive in itself.
Thank you.
You are also traveling the world. You are in India a lot. I know you're trying to get me to go with you to India. I think I'm going. I think I'm definitely going to go with you this year.
I hope so. I'm looking forward to taking you with me.
Beware, I am coming with you. Currently, you teach real estate, you teach finance, you teach business development classes for the local board, you teach for the state board.
Yep.
I know wherever I am, if I'm in California, if I'm in Florida, whatever convention is going on, whatever conference is going on, somehow I run into Raj all the time. We find each other. He's always moderating a panel, speaking somewhere, doing something interesting. I know you served on Women's Council with me when I was president. You were my right-hand person.
Yep.
You continue to do that. You teach for Women's Council. You were a part of the New York State Builders Association. The list just goes on and on. You brought me into ARIA, which is the Asian Real Estate Association of America. You also brought me into FIAPSI.
Yep. Federation of International Real Estate.
Yep. And you are very, very involved in that, and
Yes.
there's no better person that I know
Thank you.
of on the planet that can speak more about global and international real estate investing. So thank you for being
Victoria.
here.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. How is that for an intro?
I was impressed. In fact, I think Raj and I need to spend more time.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I'm concerned a little bit here.
Maybe we should switch seats. You want to sit next to Raj? All right, so let's talk about this. Foreign buyers purchased $102.6 billion of residential property in the U.S. between April 2015 and March 2016, as per the National Association of Realtors.
That is correct.
Yeah. I have a question, though. We're past the election.
Mhm.
We still have a lot of turbulence in the economy in the world. Do you think that the U.S. is still a place where foreign investors would like to invest?
I think, I'm going to send you one of the videos that I'd recently done for another country to be broadcast there. U.S. is considered the safest investment location in the world today. Anytime anybody needs to park their money, U.S. is the first bet that they look at. Whether it's Chinese, when their currency was in trouble in the last couple of years, all that money moved in here. You would see the numbers in Manhattan. You would see the numbers all across the country. Chinese bought almost $28 billion in real estate in the last 12 months in U.S.
China. Yeah.
So,
China's the leading country
the largest
that
buyers
is
of
bringing
real
in
estate
the
in
most
US.
foreign investors.
Correct. But if you look at other countries as well, Canada, Mexico, India, UK.
I'm going to stop you there because you say Canada second.
Mhm.
A lot of people are surprised by that.
Yes,
China is number one,
correct.
but by a landslide.
Landslide, absolutely.
Landslide. And then number two is
It's Canada.
I'm surprised by that.
Well, Canadians have always been, and the numbers have gone down. If you go back to 5 or 6 years, Canadian numbers have actually gone down after, their currency was not doing as well as either for the last couple of years. China was big because of what happened in that country. The GDP, if you look at for the last 5 or 6 years, had dropped from China. When the GDP is dropping and their currency was not in the place where it should be, they need to move that money out somewhere that does not lose value.
Right.
And
But
that's
even
why we
though
see a big
China,
surge from China.
even though China has a weakened economy, it's still stronger than it was in the
Oh, I mean,
strong in the last
you're
5
looking
to
at
10
6
years.
point something percent in their GDP, and we say, oh my God, the GDP went down. But 6 point something percent is one of the highest GDPs in the world still.
Right. So you're seeing a lot of Chinese investors come here, particularly New York and a lot of the metro cities in the U.S.
Yep.
Canadians, however, they're going south. They're going for warmer weather.
Correct.
I'm thinking.
They're
Yes.
focused on vacation. If you see Canadians and English also, so UK also, if you see their buying is mostly in the vacation areas.
So a lot of Florida
Correct.
is
Florida is
really
the way, yep.
receiving that
Yep.
the most.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're in answer to the question, yes.
I
you-
think
you
it will
see
continue.
foreign
The
investors.
balance might change. You might see more from Canada in days to come. China might go down, I think, in the next year or two. You'll start seeing dropping a little bit. India, I expect it to go up. You will see Mexico going up in days to
I
come.
was
So
just going to ask you about India.
Yeah.
India and Mexico.
India right now is the fastest growing economy in the world. It's surpassed China's GDP in the last 2 quarters in a row now.
Tell me about that. Why is that?
Why is that? Because it's an open market. It's a democratic country, so anybody can invest. You can take money in and out a little bit more easier than you can do in China. So because of that, and there's a lot of regulations that were there in India in the past, they've been taken out now. And as they're taking those regulations out, the foreign direct investment is starting to move into the country a lot faster. You can bring the money back a lot easier. It was a big problem in the past that the banks or the Reserve Bank that controls like US, it basically controls the money movement in and out. Outward movement was very restricted. Those restrictions have been taken away in the last 1 year. So we saw companies like BlackRock Group invest about $900 million in commercial real estate just in the last year.
Wow.
We are seeing a lot of other funds that are moving in. We expect multi-billion dollars funds going into that country in the next 6 to 12 months. Almost every major company is talking about it. Almost every major developer around the world is talking about investing and building there right now.
Building in India.
Building in India, yep.
Wow.
So,
All right, so I want to bring it back to the U.S. though,
Okay.
because still a lot of people from India are still investing in the U.S.
last year, the number was about almost close to $7.5 billion.
Wow.
And, that is not surged as China did. But you know, it went from almost 6 billion a year ago to almost 8 billion a year later. So 2 billion is still a big decent number.
So I have a very simple question, and then I'm going to turn it over to John because I'm kind of hogging the mic right now. But I want to ask you the question that everyone wants to know. Do you need to be a citizen to purchase in the U.S.?
No.
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 Again, I'm surprised by that because in a lot of other countries, you do need to be
Correct.
a citizen,
Yeah.
but you do not need to be a citizen in the U.S.
Well, in China you can't even buy.
This is true.
Even if you are a citizen, that might be a restriction there.
So Raj, with the impact of the dollar increasing in value, getting stronger, have you seen a slowdown in the influx of money coming in to buy in the U.S. market? And what segment of the market are they really gravitating to?
Well, I think those things will change, and as the currency fluctuates up and down, people like to invest where they get the best return. And when the dollar gets stronger, obviously incoming investment slows down. But again, the bond market's been doing phenomenally, well. Your stock market's done very well. So, the investment changes from one location to the other. The country doesn't change. It's the location of the investment that changes. People are looking for returns. I mean, cap rates on commercial real estate, where most people invest in, are not strong. If you go into the metro cities, you go into New York, you go into California, the cap rates have dropped dramatically. But if you start going into the tier 2 cities, which people have started to move, you see Chinese investment, Indian investments, Canadian investments, they're starting to move into the tier 2 cities now, where they can get better return for their dollar. So the investment's going to move. The country might not change.
What I have seen is that people are not necessarily purchasing for the purpose of the cap rate, but rather they want to park their money and then bank on the appreciation. So in a condo, in a co-op, let's say, or whatever the property they're buying, sometimes the cap rate is not what they're seeking. They're seeking to invest on and bet on the future appreciation of the property because they want to take the money out of the country, they want to park it in the U.S.
And in New York, what we've seen is the ultra high end of the market has been, in the residential side, has been dominated by foreign investment. What are you seeing on that, and what do you think, if the dollar continues to strengthen or there's a hiccup in the financial markets, do you see that having a bubble effect, a bursting of the bubble effect within that residential high-end market?
I think it's already there. We are already seeing that. If you look at the high-end market where, 20, 30, $40 million condos in the city were moving very quickly, they're not moving as fast as they used to move. If you look at the last 12 months of chart just for Manhattan, we've seen consistently 1% drop a month in the values. So, that stuff is already happening. And again, that could be a lot to do with the Chinese investment also, because as Leo said, they're looking to park their money for safety reasons also. And as that changes, the restrictions, I think there's been a lot of restrictive laws that have been put into place in the U.S. for money laundering and money movement, and China's monitoring that money movement as well. So as that money movement changes, I think we will see some more, at least, pull back, possibly.
I had a situation with a client of mine who purchased a condominium, made zero money, kept the apartment empty, right? In essence, they lost money for a year, and then resold it for $100,000 profit because the appreciation in New York City went up so high, and then did a 1031 exchange. So there is sometimes not per se a return on the cap or the monthly return, but rather making money with your money.
Interesting. Yeah, that's what I was hearing today, was the overall real estate market, while new inventory, new construction's down, there's such limited amounts of inventory out there that it's still driving the price up. So I think that's helping in terms of that impact of the strengthening dollar as well, just having that limited inventory. My concern is, obviously, a tremendous amount of inventory coming on the market to depress it. But Victoria, what do you see in terms of the market on foreign investments, and or I guess this would be for Raj, and what's the strongest segment of the market for that foreign investment?
I think the strongest segment, we were seeing in the past, we saw most of the investments coming into residential, and we're starting to see a lot of investments now starting to go into industrial. We're starting to see into hospitality segment also. So we're starting to see all the other segments starting to pump in because the returns are there. People are getting a decent amount of return in those places as well.
Yeah, I would actually back that up. You know, foreign investors purchased 102.6 billion, as I said when we first opened, and in commercial it was 85 billion. So there is definitely a difference. They are really gravitating more toward the residential side. I do see a lot in New York, primarily New York, Miami. You know, any of the metro cities, and I don't know if that ties into part of your question, but you know, you are seeing that in New York. You know, it doesn't really matter what's going on with the global financial markets. Real estate it continues to appreciate in New York for whatever reason, which is a wonderful thing, you know, especially being a New Yorker. But you know, we're seeing that we're constantly seeing that incline, and real estate really is still believed to build wealth. It's a very safe investment.
Totally agreed. I mean, you know, something you can lose money in the stock market and the money can totally go away. The property will always be there. So the real estate has always been the safest investment, and I don't think of anything that has given better return on your money than real estate in the past 5, 10, 20, 30 years. Look at it, real estate has returned the best money than always.
Lior, what are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree. I also think that the foreign investor should watch out what property they're buying because of the ability to rent the property. So a private house, obviously, there's no issue. But if you're buying a co-op versus a condo, the co-op regulations in terms of renting it, subleasing may have guidelines. So it's critical and vital for the lawyers to do their due diligence and see whether or not, A, the co-op board, if they're buying in a co-op, the co-op board allows foreign investors, foreign buyers. A condo may require you to put a deposit of 2 years maintenance because you're not local. And double check the ability to sublet because after all, they're not going to be moving in. So doing your due diligence when you're buying as a foreign investor, there are a lot of aspects that a savvy, shrewd, wise, intelligent lawyer should be involved in.
Yes, someone like yourself, right? It's very important what you're saying, though, because as a foreign investor, they're not supposed to be buying primary property,
correct.
right? So they're buying this with the intention to rent it, and there are a lot of boards that will say that this is only solely used for primary residence. And
Right.
then what? After they bought it, what do they do then?
Correct. So so hopefully they have done their due diligence before they bought, and B, if they did buy it, then they have no other choice but to keep it empty.
Mm-hmm. Right, which would not be a good investment.
I think we've been seeing a lot of that. A lot of foreign investments that we see, those properties are empty. They're not being occupied at all in most cases. And we were working on a project in Brooklyn where almost 50% was sold to foreign investors, and that 50% building was sitting empty, actually. A lot of people stopped moving in there and saying, you know, I'm not going to buy there because nobody's living there.
Correct.
So that's been a challenge.
Also. Yes.
But to your point, I think there's another thing that they got to watch for is the tax consequences when they sell. Things like FRIPTA, things like other taxes that go, laws that go into effect when they sell, and how the money is going to be moved back out. What are the tax consequences? What are they paying on the capital gains on those places? Because a foreign investor pays very differently than a U.S. investor is paying. I think you might want to touch on that.
Oh, absolutely. So it's critical for them to, and we can touch on it after the segment, after the commercial, but it's critical for them to be aware about the 1031 exchange and how it operates, because that defers your capital gain taxes until you resell. And also the fact that many of them are investing it with the intent of getting their green cards or citizenship, and that we should talk about after the commercial.
Yes, I'd also like to talk about what legal entities are permitted for a foreign investor as well, because one of the things when we're talking about taxes are estate taxes that they really don't take into consideration. If they purchase something and then, God forbid, they pass away, their estate will now be left with all these tax.
Absolutely. So we without a doubt do not recommend buying the property under your own name, and
Yes.
there are different means and mechanisms to protect yourself from estate tax. So
Awesome.
yes.
So when we come back from the break, we'll definitely touch on some of those things, and we will talk about the 3 things that are most important for a foreign investor. And I know, Raj, you are very well prepared to talk about that, as are you, Lior. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. If you're tuning in right now, you can catch us on podcast. If you missed the beginning of this, you can find our podcast on retalkradio.com, and we'll be right back.
So far so good. My earphone is not working.
And a dream that fuels it. My name is Jacqueline Sandra, mortgage loan originator number 39117, specializing in first-time homebuyer financing and an array of mortgage products. We recognize the importance of competitive rates and a custom-tailored mortgage loan to suit your needs.
Earphone is
United
not
County
working.
Mortgage Bank
Ah.
Ltd. Celebrates over 37 years of mortgage banking success.
What about these? We'll try these.
No, they worked before. It's just that when you connect it, I don't know what happened here.
I took your microphones off, that's why. You can hear everything now through the speaker, but I kill your mics while the spot's on. Vicky, you're back on in 9 seconds. I'm gonna hit your mics. You don't come back. Do you have any bed music?
Yeah,
Come
can
back
you
with?
actually move that more over the box? No, the box. It's pulling this. Yeah.
For more real estate
There we go.
talk, download our free
It was
podcast
connected to
at
the-
retalkradio.com.
That was connected?
Now back to Victoria Rivadeneira.
And we're back, and I'm here with Raj, my very good friend, and definitely somebody who is very well versed with global investing. And we have Lior Aldad in the house here. We're always excited when you're here, especially when you bring us chocolates. And our newest addition to Real Estate Talk, John Noto, who is our co-host today. So we left off talking about some of the things that we really need to know, the top 3 things for any foreign investor that it's very important that they know. But as we were on the break, John asked a very good question. So I'm going to turn it to you, John, and then we'll continue.
So on any foreign investor, anybody that's visiting the United States and they see a piece of property they like, how can they go about going in to buy that property? Can they just walk in and buy as a U.S. citizen, or are there other hurdles they need to get by to do
I
that?
think you might want to touch on.
Oh, absolutely. So basically, when the person walks into the apartment, and I'm going to use an example based on a condo apartment, but or a house or whatever property it is, they should discuss the intricacies of whom they are and advise the broker, the real estate broker, the real estate agent as to whom they are, and tell the agent that no, I am not a U.S. citizen, and no, I do not live here, but rather I'm here on a trip, on a business trip. I'm here to look at the property, and then I'm here to buy it as a foreign investor. And once the offer gets accepted, both sides have to retain their lawyer. The buyer's lawyer is the one who does his due diligence, so the buyer should go ahead and retain a lawyer who's experienced in dealing with foreign investors, has done transactions involving non-U.S. residents, non-locals, and knows how to structure the deal in terms of the way you buy it, the form of due diligence, and the way the funds are transferred to the seller. And to become a little bit more specific, what we usually do is we get a wire for the 10% deposit from the buyer to our firm's escrow account. Obviously, we do some due diligence as to who the buyer is and where the funds are coming from. They go through the regiments of getting approvals in their own country to send out the funds. We receive the funds to our escrow account, and then they execute the contract via PDF email. Our firm will write a 10% deposit, check, and forward everything to the seller's lawyer, who keeps it as escrow agent, and from there we move forward.
Lior, let's talk a little bit about an EB-5, because we're kind of on this subject. So the EB-5 is a visa. I'm going to let you explain what the rest of that is.
Oh, absolutely. So EB-5 is a immigration program for people who are not U.S. citizens or U.S. residents, and they want to invest money into the U.S. to get a green card. It's a program that has been around for a long time, and what it does is, if a person invests money in the U.S., I think that it's a minimum of $1 million or $500,000 in a.
Right, it's $500,000 or $1 million, depending on the local market that they're targeting.
Correct.
Right, and in New York, I mean, we typically see $1 million.
We do. We see $1 million. If the person is eligible and he follows the guidelines of the immigration laws, he or she can get a green card.
Okay, so that is giving people a lot of stuff to talk about. There's a lot of controversy with that, because Immigration Services is now, has their eye on that. They want to know, are people buying their citizenship for $1 million, or are they truly here and investing in the U.S.?
Right.
And I think that the whole visa was put into place that you have to provide 10 jobs. You have to have the business operating for at least 2 years.
Yes.
They want to make sure that the real reason is that you're investing to create something better for the U.S. as well. But we are seeing, because an EB-5 can turn into a green card for the investor and their entire family, that some people are coming over and just getting that green card and then eventually staying here. Are you seeing that?
Right. So the 2 year that you just described is a conditional green card. Right. You get a conditional green card that gets converted into a permanent green card if you are still in compliance with the laws and regulations. But go ahead, Raj.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I mean, and EB-5 has been in place, and I think it's again coming up for an extension next month or two. And they've just extended it for now, but ultimately it has to go on the floor and be debated. And I think what the government is possibly going to, and Obama administration was looking at it, and I'm sure Trump administration will look at it when it comes up.
Right.
I have a strong feeling those numbers will be increased ultimately.
The minimum number.
Minimum numbers
I
will
agree
be
with you.
increased.
That's what I've heard as well.
Yeah, it will ultimately get increased, and to Victoria's point, it makes sense. And people have been just buying that green card for, especially if you're going into a neighborhood which needs upbringing, and you're investing only $500,000. Your family gets a green card for $500,000. You're buying a green card basically for that. But with all the paperwork that goes into it and the amount of time that has been taken to process a EB-5, either you're a direct investor or you're doing it through a regional center, depending on how you're processing that paperwork, it still takes 2 to 3 years by the time you get your green card. It is taking that long, and those 10 jobs per investor have to be created. And unfortunately, you have to be very, very careful also with those things. There have been some fraudulent activity in that category, and a lot of those people that invested the money didn't see either the green card or their money.
Yeah. So what I found, first of all, I looked it up, and it's called the Targeted Employment Area (ETA).
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That is where you can invest the lesser amount.
Correct.
All right. Targeted employment area. And secondly, what I found out that recently there are groups of people who put together a fundraising. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend of mine. The way it works is, from what I've heard, is you can either become an equity investor or you can become a lender.
Correct.
And you put in your $500,000 or $1 million. They raise a project of, let's say, $40 million, $50 million, and they are going to build whatever it is, whatever project they're building, the investment, the property, if it's a hotel or if it's a factory or whatever it may be. And then all the investors who are part of the group would be eligible to get the green cards.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably, I think you're going into a category where it's a combination of EB-5 and possibly a segment of EB-2 also being bought into
Correct.
that segment
Correct.
somewhere along the line.
Right.
But that has been happening a lot, actually. Yes, you're right, absolutely.
I think Miami and Hudson Yards
Mhm.
have projects of such.
Okay. Explain I'm sorry, I was going to say EB2. Explain E2.
EB2.
Yeah,
It is EB2.
it is EB2? Okay.
Yes, EB2.
Explain that, because you mentioned it.
Well, what EB2 is basically where if you're not able to invest, let's say $500,000, and you wanted to invest on a smaller scale, you can go into and says, I'm going to open a restaurant, which is going to still create 8 or 10 jobs, whatever those jobs are. And those jobs will be supported by that. Now, till that restaurant is running, you get a temporary visa. It's not a full green card in that segment. You just get a temporary visa. The day your restaurant closes, you don't have a residency in the country. So it's a little bit toned down version of EB-5.
It's basically a work visa in lieu of a permanent residence card or a green card.
Okay, so I'm glad that we're on this topic, because when we went to break, we said we were going to come back and talk about the top 3 things, and EB-5 is definitely one of those top things that investors really need to understand. They understand the inner workings of it. But Leo, I want to ask you a question as an attorney. Wiring money into the U.S., there are people that are money laundering, and I know when we're wiring now, the U.S. Treasury wants us to make sure that there's background checks done, that there is verification of funds. How are you handling that?
Oh, absolutely. So what happens is, the way my firm handles it is that if the person comes from a country that requires any prerequisite approvals, we ask them to show us what approvals they secured from their local governments before we accept the money. And secondly, we only deal with international FDIC approved banks, so we don't get any wires from any individuals or anybody else that they want to wire, but rather bank to bank, and that in a way is sort of a way that protects us. Anything beyond that is extremely difficult to protect.
Okay. I want to talk about the taxes too. We, when foreign investors are coming here, we talked about legal entities. What do you recommend for the legal entities?
What limited liability company, which is a former corporation. It does not have any annual fees, and it's extremely advisable to buy it in an LLC. The company that is buying the property, the domestic LLC, is then becomes a subsidiary of an offshore entity. It could be a BVI or could be any other entity, and then the foreign investor becomes the shareholder. Preferably two shareholders, but if they have one, it's okay. The shareholder of the offshore, and this way, if the foreign investor passes away, then there is a huge gap between the decedent and the U.S. property, because what happens is a foreign investor who passes away owns shares of stock of a foreign corporate entity who happens to be a parent company of a domestic entity that happens to own real estate in New York. So there's a huge gap between the real property and the foreigner. If the foreigner owns the property under his or her personal name, and he or she passes away, it could be a state tax of up to 50%.
That is something that I really want to say again, because I think it's worth repeating. I don't think people realize when they come here, if they are putting properties in their own name, it's 40% in the U.S., and if they're buying in New York, I know it's almost like 16%.
Right.
So you're talking over 50%, which is exactly what you just said. That's huge.
It's huge.
Huge.
And they have no clue, and they don't even know. Nobody is advising them because they're not dealing with lawyers who are familiar or versed in the international. And the guy comes in and says, I'm buying on my own name. The lawyer says, fine, and they make a big mistake. What happens is that they call me afterwards and say, hi, I was advised by my estate lawyer that I need to transfer the condo that I bought under my personal name to an LLC. Can you do that for me? And yes, we go ahead and we transfer it. If they have a bank, it becomes extremely difficult because you're not allowed to take the collateral away without the bank's consent. If the bank does consent, it becomes a whole refi, and then you're dealing with New York State mortgage tax because you are refinancing, so it becomes a SEMA, and the whole thing is extremely costly mistake when you could have just prevented it in the get-go and just buy it under a domestic LLC.
Would you want to touch a little bit about the capital gains tax as well? Because that's another thing that people don't realize that exists.
Yes, you have, we're going to talk about Section 1031 of the IRS code, which is about to, they're constantly talking about it being expiring or not expiring, being renewed or not renewed. If somebody owns a property under their personal name and it's their primary residence, they're entitled to $250,000 credit against federal capital gain tax if they have lived there in the 2 out of the last 5 years, and if they are married, it's $500,000. What a person, an investor, does is when they sell, they have a tremendous amount of capital gain taxes, and they're not allowed to tap into the primary residence credits. So what we do is we do an exchange pursuant to Section 1031 of the IRS code. That is a mechanism to defer. It does not cancel, but it defers the capital gain taxes. And the way it works is you have 45 days from the day that you close to nominate a replacement property for the same value or more. And you have 180 days to close on the replacement property that you've nominated. You can nominate 3 and then close on 1, or 150% and then close on the number of properties. It does not have to be one property. You can sell one condo or one building and then buy 2 or 3, so long as the value in the pot is the same or more than the value you've sold. If you had a loan, you have to keep the same value of the amount you sold and replenish the funds.
But if you're a foreigner and you're not filing taxes in U.S. and you're not doing under LLC, what consequences do you have at that stage?
You should be filing taxes in the U.S., so especially for the property that you own.
If my kids buy a property, let's say I'm a foreigner, my kids are going to school here. I buy a property for my kids. Instead of renting, I buy a property for them. So the only tax
You have to get an EIN number.
EIN number,
And
etc.
you file, and you
So
file
you're
in
just
New York,
filing the taxes.
in New York and
And
federal.
you can still do a 1031 exchange.
Yes, you can
You
do
are.
a 1031 exchange,
Okay, you under that,
absolutely.
okay. Got it. Great. Thank you.
So, when an investor is looking for, a foreign investor looking for a mortgage, is it a typical standard application at a bank and so forth? Or?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So let's tell us a little bit about
But
that.
you know, Raj is the expert in mortgages. I'll revert to him to.
Well, there's a lot that goes into it. Basically, every bank has a different program. Some don't have it at all. Most of the banks don't actually. They're very much shying away. In the last couple of years, a lot of banks have been hit with some very serious amount of penalties from the federal government, as large as $2 billion to a single bank that was hit for money laundering, actually. So the challenge for the bank is to verify the source of the down payment, first of all. And the second challenge is, does this person even have the income to support the mortgage payment if they are borrowing? So in most cases, if you will get money, it will be with a large down payment. 25 is probably the minimum it starts with. If they're going to lend you money, some countries you're able to verify the tax returns. Other countries are scared. You don't know the tax return you're bringing are real. Actually, you could have printed on the way on the flight there. And the third part that the big concern now even more is the money laundering. The source of the funds is a big thing, and you know, as Leo had mentioned earlier, that they try to verify, take it through only legitimate sources. But if you're getting a mortgage, the bank will take it a step further. Let's say you were getting money wired out of an account out of China. Now, China is restricted to $50,000 per person per year. So a lot of times people do is, you know, I got 6 cousins and 6 people will wire the money $50,000 each. So they go and ask for the bank statements from China or whichever country the money is coming from. They want to look at the bank statements, and in most cases, the challenge that we see, I've seen a lot of those bank statements, the deposits were put in the account like a day before the wire. That becomes a problem. And then we go back to them saying, show us where you got that money to put that in that account the day before. Most cases, you're not able to document that money. And if you're not able to document that, that becomes a problem. That's almost a decline of the loan that they're applying for here.
That, what he's just said about the restrictions of getting money out of your country, that may also affect, you have to take into consideration your closing and your setup. You see, if there are certain restrictions of you getting the funds out, your seller may not be around to wait for all your guidelines. You have to put into the contract the flexibility to defer the closing because your seller, the domestic seller, hypothetically, or whoever wants to move on with their life and they're selling their apartment or house, they don't want to wait for all these headaches of you having to say, wait, I can only transfer out a certain amount of time within certain period of certain amount, certain period, etc. So, again, you're dealing with foreign buyers. Your seller should know, your brokers should know, everybody should know that you have the funds coming from out of the country, and there are certain limitations and guidelines. What I would do if I was a foreign buyer, before even entering the real estate market, I would try to open a domestic U.S. account, start transferring the money outside the country, and then you would have the funds available to you in a local bank, which I've seen my clients do. And then the person tells me, you know, I have $250,000 at Citibank, and I don't need to worry about anything. The funds are there available. I've been screened, and everything is up to par. I'm ready to buy with my down payment. And secondly, about what Raj said is, certain banks would require you to have a minimum funds in their account. It could be $2-3 million as well, because they need, that's part of the cushion requirements of you being a secured investor in the U.S. And above and beyond the collateral, they want to have a liquid security in the account. So they make you open a local account, if it's HSBC or whatever other bank it is. They make you open a local account. All the expenses and operation of the apartment has to go through that account, right? Like paying the real estate taxes, the maintenance, the common charges. They all have to go through the bank's account. And in addition to that, the bank will require you to have a minimum reserve in the bank.
Well, that would be even, I mean, that sounds pretty onerous. Even if you want to put a 25+% down payment or make an all-cash offer, you still have the same restriction of taking the money out of the home country into the U.S.
Correct?
Yes, and then there's more too. I mean, the U.S. Treasury, as of last spring, cash deals or even anything above 3 million in New York City or anything above, in cash above $1 million in Miami, you have to name the investor. And a lot of investors didn't know that, and you won't get title unless that investor is named. So they want to make sure that you're identifying who the person is, and not only just where the funds are coming from, but that it ties back together. We have to go to a break though, so when we come back, I want to really talk to Raj about some of the stats that you have. I know you have a tremendous amount of information on where foreign investment is coming from, which countries are leading it, what's happening in our world. I'm Victoria Rivadeneira. You're listening to Real Estate Talk, and if you are tuning in now, we are live streaming on Facebook.com/Victoria RIVA on every Wednesday between 12 and 1. And then we also air on WOR AM 710 out of New York on Sundays at 5 a.m. And our podcast can be found at retalkradio.com. We'll be right back.
Credit repairman.
Right,
and
you can talk. I
want
shut
you
your mics
to
off.
improve your credit.
Okay.
As the
You're
CEO
safe.
of Better Qualified, I've helped thousands of people over the past 10 years.
By the way, Victoria, sorry about the confusion earlier, but I have the timer going. That's how I knew you had more time.
You know what? I didn't realize we started at 12:09, not 12 o'clock. So I'm looking at the time going, break.
I know. I was wondering why somebody was throwing something at me.
Because I'm going like this and you're not.
Yeah, I know. That's why I wasn't worried. I should apologize to you. I should have told you I had the timer going. I should have told you.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, all right, you got.
Because we never, ever start late.
I got
She
5
was doing light
seconds.
stuff.
Yes. It's when I
Okay.
pick up chairs that you have to worry.
At betterqualified.com.
RETalkradio.com is your portal for cutting edge
Now you let this
information
play out,
to
right?
give you an
Okay.
advantage in the
All right.
competitive
I'll
real
give
estate
you.
market.
I'll let you know it's down to
Back
10
to Real
seconds.
Estate Talk with Victoria Rivadeneira.
Thank you. We have Raj Paul in the house with us today. Very excited to have you here. We are talking about global investors coming into the U.S. We have Lior Aldad here as our legal counsel, and we have John Noto here, co-host. If you are tuning in right now, you can find our podcast on retalkradio.com. And when we left off, we were talking about verifying funds, verifying the name of the investor, cash deals versus mortgages. We can get a mortgage. It's just a very, very different process.
Mhm.
Yes?
Yep, not only different, it's difficult as well. So, depending on what
Not
you're
only
in-
different, but difficult,
difficult
you
as
said.
well.
Yes.
Because, the key is you're verifying things from a different country. And I just closed somebody's $2 million condo literally about a week ago where he had just moved in here. He was not in the U.S. He was in the U.S. for less than a year almost. Had never filed taxes in U.S. But now he's earning in U.S. Had not established credit, but is looking for a $2 million mortgage. So it was, we closed it. It was done, but it took a lot of effort because
So
we
was
had
he
to
a
build.
citizen here as well?
He was not a citizen
He was
either.
not
He
a
was on a
citizen.
company transfer. Company had just
Okay.
transferred him from their office abroad to the U.S. office. So, those are the kind of things now you have to build a case for the bank underwriter to say, hey, why is this person getting a mortgage? Why should we give him money? We don't know he has credit in the U.S., so we had to actually do an international credit report to get more data out of that country and say, hey, has he had credit? Verify from the local company here, are you going to keep him here or are you going to ship him back 6 months from now? So there's a lot of additional verifications that go into the process. The money just moved from that foreign country. He moved a couple of $1 million from that country into U.S. Is this real money? Is it verifiable money? Is there money laundered there? He was moving over $2 million from abroad. So when you're moving that kind of money, we need to see where that money came from. So we had to go to the bank in that country and verify the money had seasoned in that account as well. So something like that does not close fast. And the paperwork is literally stressful.
Raj, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What I advise my clients as an idea, assuming they're able to do it, is as an idea. Why don't you buy cash if you can buy cash?
Mhm.
Get the seller out of the way, and then go and refinance and cash out. Is that would you advise that strategy? Buy cash. Maybe you can negotiate even better because you're buying cash. Have a quick 30-day, 45-day closing, right? And then contact you, an expert like yourself, and say, hi,
Mhm.
I'd like to refinance my apartment. Can I get 60% out?
Yeah, you can do that. I think that's usually a good strategy. The challenge becomes is now you got to move additional money also. If you're having a hard time moving that small portion of the money, and now you got to double that money and move it into the country, more verifications will
Right,
take in there.
assuming
You-
the
they're open to
finance
this.
aspect of it is
That
feasible.
would be a better strategy, absolutely.
It would be,
Oh,
right.
absolutely, yes. Totally agree with you there.
So when you look at the new administration, some of the policies that they're looking at, what do you see that could be helpful or, make things tighter for the foreign investor? What do you see the policies could hurt, or what do you see in policies that might come down the pike that could help the foreign investor buy real estate?
Well, the first step is we got to figure out where the policies are going.
Right. And
That's a confusing situation in itself. Don't know which direction what policy is going to go tomorrow morning. But I think the current administration should be more business friendly at least. So if they are more business friendly, chances are, it will make it easier to buy properties across the borders, because most of the people that are involved in the administration, it's probably the biggest billionaires combo on one
Right.
table. All these people invest back and forth themselves. So they gotta think like, I can move my money back and forth from each other's countries.
Yeah, you would think they'd be more friendly.
More
to
friendly, I would say.
making that
I would
happen.
say
If they
so.
understand it better.
Yeah, starting from our president, he's got towers all around the world,
Mhm.
and he brings in foreign money to build his stuff in U.S. So he's got to think, even if he's thinking about himself, he might be making it more friendly.
Right, like the 1031, potentially expiring or not. I mean, they usually with legislation like that, they threaten it's going to
Yeah,
expire.
that'll get extended.
Yeah,
That's one of the.
We
Yeah.
surely hope it's going to get extended, number one. And number two is, I totally agree with Raj that if you have, the more money you have in the U.S. flowing, the better off you are in terms of making the market stronger. And foreign money, foreign investment, foreign investors, people who are moving the market, make America great again. So shutting down the doors from international investors, I don't agree with the president, or I'm not sure where he stands on that aspect, but I surely hope that he has an open mind to that effect and understand that people who put money in, people who invest money in the U.S., people who transact in the U.S., doesn't matter if they're locals or international, make the economy much stronger. So I am totally an advocate and pro international investors, international buying, international source of funds, because it doesn't matter where the money is coming from, local or from the outside. The more movement we have, the more growth we have, and the objective is to grow. So if it's for example money coming from the outside, an investor comes in and he says, I'm going to put X amount of dollars, and I'm going to build more buildings. Building more buildings becomes indirectly buying more supplies, employing more U.S. workers, right? It's all a matter of making the economy flourish. So I'm an advocate, 100% of having foreign investors and money coming into the U.S. Doesn't matter where the source is from, so long as it's legal.
Right, and with the statistics that you've given us, you see that the amount of financial investment in the U.S. in foreign money, that anything that restricts that or hinders that can severely impact certain segments of a real estate market.
Oh, absolutely. One, it impacts the real estate market, but also it impacts the job growth. Because if somebody's investing in our country, building a large building, not only it's creating direct jobs as the construction's going on, as Leo said, it creates a lot of indirect jobs as well, because that somebody's going to supply the material. That factory is now flourishing.
Right.
So it creates a lot of indirect jobs, and it's
Excellent
great for
point.
the economy.
All right, so what I want to talk about with you, Raj, now is where are the foreign investors coming from? We said China was number one, it
Yeah.
was leading it.
Yeah, and then you're followed by Canada right after that. India was number 3 actually, and then you've got your Mexico and UK. These are the 5 countries that were on the top of the list.
Mexico and UK.
UK
right?
was
is number
on the
5.
4 and 5. So these are the top 5 countries that are bringing in most of the money, which was almost $106 billion last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah,
That's coming
and that's
in there.
106 billion on the residential
Correct.
side,
We're
and
not touching
85
commercial.
billion on the
The
commercial
commercial side. So
side.
think about it. Almost $200 billion of money came in, and it created jobs.
Yes,
That money gets
absolutely.
invested here. That creates jobs.
I find it fascinating, though, that if you take China, that's the number one leading country that's investing here in the U.S. Most of their deals are all cash, almost 70%.
Correct. 70% of their deals were cash, and and Canada was very, very similar. UK was almost 50-50 in that direction. But yeah, Chinese mostly bought cash, actually.
Okay.
And it's amazing. That's a country where you can't move the money out of.
Yes.
That's the most
so
restrictive out of the whole group.
That's very challenging.
It is. It is.
You know, so it's interesting that is what's
Yeah.
happening.
On the air, I'm not going to tell you how they move the money.
Yeah, well,
But
not with Lior here, that's for sure.
you got to stay legal here.
We don't know.
We don't.
All right, very good. I like that answer, Lior. The other thing that I find interesting too, though, about the Chinese investors is that they are really gravitating toward the higher priced residential.
Actually, they were the highest buyers. 899,000, almost 900,000 was the average purchase price, compared to the average purchase price in U.S. last year was about $255,000, $260,000.
Yeah.
3 times the national average was their purchase price.
That's absolutely correct, and that is what intrigues me about that. Where they're changing a lot of the prices in our country by buying such high end.
Yeah, I mean, but see, I don't know if for now they are changing the prices. My challenge, and I'm very concerned with that, and I've seen that not only here, I've seen that in China in itself. If you have visited China, there are ghost cities there. You go to Shanghai, you go to Shenzhen, places like that, the entire cities are built and nobody's living there. Thousands of condos, thousands of townhouses, nobody's living there. And it seems like when you see the concentration of that segment buying in U.S. as well, nobody's living there either.
So yeah, and, it's funny. I've dealt with on the valuation side with a lot of foreign entities, and they're not overpaying in a lot of respects. They are creating markets.
They are creating markets, yeah.
But they're shrewd investors. They're not. They're not just throwing money around. So
they're the best negotiators in the world, probably.
Exactly right. So when we see these, average prices, they're buying into the high-end markets and placing money appropriately in the market.
I totally agree with you.
All right, so let's go to the next one, which is Canada. So Canada, same thing, and you said that Canadians are coming in buying mainly all cash, and they're going above 70%. More than 70% of Canadians are buying all cash.
Correct.
But they're buying differently. They're not buying the same kind of properties that the
Right.
Chinese
The focus is
investors
different. Chinese are buying for either just leaving it for investment in good location. In metro cities, in most cases, you'll see more California, you'll see more New York. And you certainly go to Canada, now they're buying in Florida and places of vacation. So they're buying it as a second or a vacation home where they can go on a weekend and just stay there. Canada not being too far, so it's easy for them to do that.
Right, so about 45% is suburban.
Suburban, actually.
And 23% is resort areas.
Correct.
So they are looking for the sunshiny states.
They are looking for the sunshine, absolutely.
So I find that interesting. So let's go to India now. So India, what are they doing?
Again, they're spread all over the place. If you saw Jersey being one of the largest buyer portions of the place, you'll see Texas, Jersey, California.
New Jersey is the number one state that Indians are gravitating towards.
Yeah.
Number two, do you know? Oh, I know you know.
So
Lior,
what
do you think
I
number
found
two is?
about the Indian buyers is that they like to buy it for the children.
Yes.
And they come to me and they put the properties in the children's name. I think it has to do with the form of the way they give inheritance, or if the child is about to get married, for some reason they want it in the child's name.
Just give it away.
Before he or she gets married, due to whatever strategics they have in their mind. So, yes, Indians are buying, but they're buying in the younger generation name, not necessarily in the parents' name. Or what they do is they buy in the parents' name and the children's name as joint tenants with the right of survivorship, which means that if they pass away, they want their kids to inherit it outside of their state. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, they're very family-oriented. They wanted to leave something for the kids. That's always the case, and that's why you will see even the education side of it with Indians. They're very focused on the kids' education. They don't care if they have to sell their house. They'll make sure the kid goes to college. They're very big with that, actually.
Okay, that's good. And as real estate brokers, as attorneys, anyone who's representing, anyone who's purchasing, we have to understand the cultural side of the investor.
Well, absolutely.
That's very important.
Well, that's the key to it. I think here's a thought that just came into mind. One of the shows you should do is ethnic diversity. what are some of these ethnicities do and how they react to what you say and do when they're
100%.
looking to buy. And sometimes, you might be thinking you're saying the right thing, you may be offending them. And I think I always give an example of that. Our president, one of our presidents, went into France, and where they used the peace sign in U.S., which was the one finger sign in New York, and he drove through the motorcade all the way where on national world television. So he was thinking he's saying peace, and I don't have to say what
And
he
he
was
was
saying.
really saying something else.
Something else.
Not very peaceful.
But it's you have to understand those diversities.
Right,
I
right.
agree with you, but in the same token, you have to take into consideration when you speak to coaches and real estate, is that some of them do not buy on certain floors, some of them do not buy apartments with certain letters, certain letters, and vice versa. Some people are looking for the 18th floor only. So yes, I agree. There's a lot of cultural involvement.
Yes, and it is very, very interesting. There's a whole show just on the numbers.
Feng Shui or Vastu Shastra. There's a lot of those things there. As you said, numbers. Some would want an 8 number, some would want a 4 number, some would not buy on the 13th floor, and the house has to face in a certain direction,
That's
and
right.
the kitchen has to be in a certain place. So all those things, but you need to understand your buyer. Otherwise, you're showing them wrong houses.
That's right.
The house that they'll never buy, and you show them those houses after 3 showings, they'll say, this realtor doesn't know what he's doing. I'm going someplace else.
Yep. So, Raj, we're winding down. We were talking about India. I kind of wanted to run through the top 5, but we really only have about a minute left. Is there anything that you want to add to this show that we haven't touched?
I think the realtors need to start understanding the foreign money that is coming in. They need to understand a little bit more about the tax laws of how the money movement happens, or at least have the right network of people to refer them. So if somebody has a tax question, hey, there's my accountant who understands your and my country both. Here's my legal advisor who understands both the countries. So the money has to flow in both directions. Coming in is fine, but ultimately they have to take it back sometime, or they need to so the realtors don't have to be an expert on them, but they need to at least understand what can happen there. So the goal is to build a long-term relationship. The goal is to get referrals from that person later on, and they must understand the whole culture aspect of it also, so that you're not offending somebody. Time difference is a big thing. You're not calling in the middle of the night suddenly while you're waking somebody up.
Right.
So,
Raj, I know you do a tremendous amount of speaking. How does someone reach you?
How does somebody reach me? Email rajpal@live.com.
So Rajpal at live.com. That's the best way to reach Raj.
Email's the best way to
I
find
want to
me.
thank you very much for
Or
being
just
here.
Google Raj and type mortgage next to it, I'll come up.
Well, being in the top 1% of loan originators, I would imagine you would come up right away. Thank you very much for being with us. This is a very wonderful topic.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, definitely. I'm glad that you're here. I want to thank John Noto for co-hosting the show with me, and Lior. Thank you very much. We love having you in the studio, and you add so much value to our show. I'm Victoria Rivadeneira. You're watching or listening to Real Estate Talk. We can be found at retalkradio.com. We live video stream every Wednesday between 12 and 1 from the WOR iHeart Studios. And we also are on the air on Sunday mornings at 5 a.m., AM 710 WOR. Thank you again. Until next time. We'll see you then soon. I'm Victoria Rivadeneira. Bye-bye now.